I paid for my brother's rehab, visited him weekly, and held his hand through every relapse. At Christmas, he stood up in front of everyone and announced, "The only reason I ever relapsed was because of her pressure." I felt like the floor dropped out beneath me. The following Christmas, I got a card from him from jail begging for help I no longer had to give. I'm Rachel. I'm 43. I live in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and this is the story of how I gave everything I had: time, money, energy, peace of mind to save my brother Dean, only to have him throw it all back in my face in front of our entire family. The kind of betrayal that leaves a hole in your chest doesn't come out of nowhere. It builds, over years. This wasn't one bad day. It was 100 choices I made to put him first. And it all led to one moment that changed how I see him, myself, and our family. Dean is my younger brother. Always has been the favorite, even when he didn't deserve it. Growing up, he was the kid everyone loved. He had this charm about him. Our mom left when we were still kids, and after that, Dad worked 2 jobs just to keep things going. I helped raise Dean more than I should have at that age. He got away with things. I didn't. That was the dynamic from the start. He started using drugs in his early 20s. I didn't know how bad it was at first. I thought it was just weed, like a lot of people his age. But then he started calling me asking for money, just $20 to cover rent, or I need help with groceries. One time he said he needed gas to get to a job interview. I sent it. He didn't go. It got worse. Pills, then meth. Then stealing. At first, it was things from Dad's garage. Later, it was cash from my wallet when he'd come over. He denied it. Said I was paranoid. Still, I paid for his first rehab stay. I borrowed money from a friend to do it. He swore he'd stay clean. And he did, for about 6 weeks. Then he relapsed. Said he had a panic attack. Said he needed something to calm down. And I believed him. It was always something. A bad week. A toxic friend. A breakup. A lie he told that somehow became my fault. Every time he went into rehab, I was the one who filled out the paperwork. I was the emergency contact. I brought him clean clothes and made sure his rent got paid while he was in there. I visited him every Sunday, brought snacks when they let me. I held his hand through group sessions where he cried about our childhood and said he was finally ready to be better. I bought him a used car once, after he got out clean. A little green Honda with peeling paint. I paid for the insurance too. He sold it 2 months later for drug money. Paul, my husband at the time, tried to be supportive. For a while, he even drove with me to meetings. But after the 3rd relapse, something in him shut off. He told me flat out one night, "I think your brother's going to take you down with him. You don't see it yet." We fought about it. Over and over. Paul left in 2017. Said he couldn't take being second in my life to a man who didn't want to be saved. I remember crying in the laundry room, holding one of his shirts, while Dean slept on my couch. Even then, I kept helping him. The Christmas of 2022 is the day everything changed. Like every year, we had dinner at Aunt Helen's house in Des Moines. She's our dad's older sister. She always hosts mostly because she has a bigger house and no kids at home. The whole family goes, cousins, uncles, our dad, even Dean's ex and their daughter sometimes. We do a potluck, sit around the fireplace, pass out gifts after dinner. Dean had just gotten out of another rehab. I paid for it. It was his 4th time in. This time he said it was different. He was in a faith-based one out in Dubuque. Said he found God. Said he forgave himself. I wanted to believe him. He looked okay that day. A little pale, maybe too skinny. But he was smiling, telling jokes. I thought maybe, just maybe, we'd turned a corner. After dinner, while people were still sipping coffee and nibbling cookies, he stood up in the middle of the living room. Held up his glass of sparkling cider like it was a toast. I want to say something. My stomach sank. He hadn't warned me. I hadn't heard anything about a speech. I just want to be honest tonight. About recovery. And about who's really been there for me. He looked right at me. Then looked away. I know I've messed up a lot. I've made mistakes. But the biggest reason I kept relapsing, it wasn't just the drugs. It was the pressure. The constant pressure. From Rachel. The room went dead quiet. She means well, I know. But she suffocates me. She doesn't let me grow. I always felt like I had to be perfect for her. Like I wasn't allowed to make mistakes without being punished. That pressure, it drove me to use again. Every time. I couldn't believe it. My chest went tight. My hands shook. No one said anything. Not Dad. Not Aunt Helen. Not even his ex, who knew exactly how many times I'd stepped in to pick up the pieces he left behind. He sat down like nothing happened. Took a sip of his drink. Started talking to our cousin like he hadn't just gutted me in front of everyone. I grabbed my coat and left. No one followed me. That was the last time I spoke to him. He texted. Called. Said he didn't mean to hurt me. That he was just being honest. That I needed to look at how controlling I'd been. I blocked his number. After that, I heard things through the grapevine. He got fired from a job stocking shelves. He missed court dates. He got caught shoplifting. Then he was caught with drugs again. Arrested. Spent the summer in county jail. In December 2023, I got a card in the mail. It was a cheap Christmas card with Santa and glitter that rubbed off on my fingers. Inside was a note. Rachel, I messed up. I'm in Polk County Jail. I know I don't deserve anything. But I need help. You were always the only one who believed in me. Please. I don't have anyone else. I stared at it for a long time. I thought about my savings account that was empty. My divorce papers. My quiet apartment. The way nobody stood up for me that night. How much I gave, and how little I ever got back. I folded the card. Put it in a drawer. And I never answered. After that Christmas, I didn't talk to anyone in the family for a while. Not even Dad. They didn't reach out either. Maybe they were ashamed. Maybe they believed Dean. Maybe they were just tired of the whole thing, like I was. I went to work. I came home. I kept to myself. I started therapy. My therapist told me I had codependency traits. I laughed out loud. That was putting it lightly. Then in March, something strange happened. I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Normally I don't pick up, but something told me to answer. Is this Rachel Madsen? The voice asked. Yes, I said, cautious. This is Officer Kelly from the Des Moines Police Department. I'm calling because your name came up during a recent arrest. Do you have a brother named Dean Madsen? My blood turned cold. What happened? Dean was arrested during a burglary. He was with 2 others. He claimed you could verify he was with you earlier that day. Just trying to confirm. I closed my eyes. Of course. Of course he dragged me into it. No, I said, my voice flat. He wasn't with me. I haven't seen him in over a year. There was a pause. Understood. Thanks for your time. That call hit me like a punch. Not because I was surprised he was in trouble again, but because he used my name. Tried to pull me in again. Even from jail. Even after everything. That same night, I checked my mailbox. Another letter from Dean. This time, the handwriting was messy. Almost frantic. I opened it, expecting the usual apologies and begging. But this one was different. Rachel, I know you're still angry. I don't blame you. But I didn't do what they're saying. I was clean. I swear. The two guys I was with set me up. I only went with them because I needed a place to sleep. I didn't break in. I didn't touch anything. You know I wouldn't do that. Please. Just talk to the lawyer. Tell them I'm not that guy anymore. They want to throw the book at me. Please, Rach. I need you. I'm scared. I crumpled the letter and dropped it on the counter. For a second, I felt a twinge of guilt. He sounded desperate. But then I remembered all the times I believed him. All the nights I lost sleep. All the lies. All the money. And that damn speech in front of the fireplace, like I was the reason he couldn't get clean. I went to bed. Didn't answer. But part of me couldn't stop thinking about it. 2 weeks later, I got a Facebook message from his ex, Serena. I hadn't talked to her in years. She was the mother of Dean's daughter, Ellie, who was now 10. Her message was short, "Can we talk?" It's about Ellie. And Dean. I stared at it for a while. I didn't want to get pulled back in. But this wasn't just about Dean now, it was about his daughter. A little girl who had already been through too much. We met at a diner off First Avenue. She looked tired. Older. Her eyes were red like she'd been crying. "I wouldn't be here if I had a choice," she said. "What's going on?" She sighed. "Dean called me from jail. He said he gave your name to the public defender. Said you'd help." "He lied," I said, shaking my head. "I figured," she said. "But it's more complicated than that." "What do you mean?" "He gave them Ellie's birth certificate. Said you were her godmother." I blinked. "What?" "He said if anything happens to him, if he goes away for a long time, he wants you to take Ellie." I sat there in the diner, my coffee going cold in front of me, while Serena watched me closely. "I didn't agree to anything," she said quickly. "I told them I still have custody. That Dean's just trying to manipulate people. But he gave them your info. Said you're the only stable one in the family." I couldn't even speak. God, he was playing the long game now. Naming me godmother? That had never happened. I would have remembered something like that. He was laying the groundwork to drag me back in, using Ellie this time. Serena leaned in, her voice lower. "He's facing serious time, Rachel. This wasn't some shoplifting stunt. It was a home break-in. Guns were involved. They didn't find one on Dean, but the other guys had them. The DA wants to make an example." I swallowed hard. "And he wants to put a kid in the middle of it?" "He doesn't care," she said. "Not really. You know that." I stared at her. "Why are you telling me this?" Serena's face softened. "Because you need to be ready. If this case gets more attention, you might get called in. And also," she paused, looked down at her chipped nails, "Ellie keeps asking about him. And sometimes, about you." That night, I dug out the old photos. Me holding baby Ellie in the hospital. Her first birthday, cake on her cheeks. One summer, Dean dropped her off at my place for a weekend. He disappeared for 5 days. I fed her, bathed her, read her stories, and called every cop in town until I found him detoxing in a public restroom. Ellie had loved me. And for a long time, I loved her like she was mine. Now she was 10, and her father was trying to rope her into his lies. Again. The next day, I called the Polk County Public Defender's office. Asked if I'd been listed as Dean's character witness. The woman on the phone put me on hold, came back, and said, "Yes, ma'am. Your name's on the witness list. He submitted a statement that you've known him better than anyone, and that you can speak to his growth and effort." My stomach turned. "Can I submit something in writing?" I asked. "You can. Anything you'd like. It will be reviewed by both sides. I hung up, sat down, and started typing. I wrote the truth. How many times he'd lied. How many thousands of dollars I'd spent. How he'd spoken against me in front of our family. How he was manipulative, self-destructive, and only kind when he needed something. I described his relapses. His schemes. The time I found him passed out in my bathroom after he'd sworn he was clean. And I added this: he has used every tool, every person, and now he's trying to use a little girl to save himself. Do not be fooled by his tears. I have been, too many times. And I've paid the price for it. I printed it. Signed it. Mailed it. A week later, Dad showed up at my door. He never just drops by. I opened the door, saw him standing there in his usual plaid jacket, holding a manila envelope. I need to talk to you, he said, voice low. I let him in. He sat at the kitchen table, looked at me with tired eyes. I visited Dean, he said. He's scared. I said nothing. He told me about what you wrote. Good, I said. I hope they read it twice. Dad shook his head slowly. You were always the strong one. The one who held everything together. I know I didn't say it back then, but you did more for him than I ever could. I blinked. That was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever get from him. But there's something you don't know, he said, opening the envelope. He pulled out a birth certificate. Ellie's. I scanned it. My name was listed. Godmother. What the hell is this? I asked, heart racing. He forged it, Dad said. Used my old typewriter. Same one he used to fake that job application back in 19. He made it look real. My hand started shaking. He's trying to set up a defense, Dad said. If he looks like a devoted father, if he shows he has a stable family ready to take the kid, they might go easier on him. Is anyone going to believe that? I asked. Dad looked away. You'd be surprised what people believe. I called Serena. Told her everything. She didn't sound surprised. He'll do anything, she said. He has nothing left to lose. Then she hesitated. But I need to ask you something. And it's a big if something ever happens to me, would you take Ellie? For real? I closed my eyes. I didn't answer right away. Because the truth is, I didn't know. I didn't know if I could raise the daughter of the man who burned my life to the ground. I didn't know if I had it in me to open that door again. But I also knew Ellie wasn't him. And maybe that was the most dangerous part. It all came to a head in August. The trial started on a hot Monday morning. Dean looked thinner than ever in that oversized suit, hands cuffed, eyes darting around the courtroom like a trapped animal. I sat in the back. I hadn't planned to go. But Serena called and said Ellie had been asking why people were talking about her dad on the news. They were covering the case now, the three-man burglary ring in Des Moines that had broken into a veteran's home. One of the other guys had a record for armed robbery. The other had fled the state. Dean was the only one who hadn't run. I needed to know what would happen. Not for Dean. For her. Dean's lawyer painted him as the accidental accomplice. Said he thought he was just going along to grab some stuff from an ex's house. Said he didn't know there'd be weapons. Said he panicked. Then came the character witnesses. The first was a guy from one of Dean's old AA groups. Spoke about how Dean wanted to change. Then they tried to call me. The prosecutor objected. They already had my statement. But the defense insisted. They wanted the jury to see the family support with their own eyes. I stood. Walked to the front. Took the oath. Dean looked at me like I was his last hope. His lawyer smiled. Can you state your relationship to the defendant? I'm his sister. Would you say you've been close? I said. For a long time. And would you say he's tried to get better? I looked at Dean. He nodded slightly. Like we were in on something together. I would say, I began, voice steady, that my brother is the best liar I've ever met. The room went dead quiet. I kept going. I've bailed him out. Paid for 4 rehab stints. Covered his rent, fed him, cleaned up after his overdoses, and lost my husband in the process. He told me I was his rock. Then, at Christmas, he stood in front of our entire family and said I was the reason he kept relapsing. Dean's face dropped. I lost everything trying to save him. And he only ever took. His lawyer stuttered. Miss Madsen, with respect, that's not, you asked if he tried to get better. Yes. Every time he wanted something. I stepped down. Dean didn't look at me again. He got 10 years. 5 for the break-in. 3 for violating parole. 2 more for using false documents in court. Turns out, the judge didn't appreciate a forged godmother form. Serena got full custody again. Ellie started seeing a counselor. I paid for the first few sessions. She sent me a thank you note. In crayon. Thank you for helping my mommy. I remember you from when I was little. You made pancakes. I hope we can do that again. I sat in my kitchen holding that note, crying harder than I had in years. Because I finally realized the mistake I'd made. I tried to save Dean for so long, I never asked if I was supposed to. Maybe my revenge wasn't loud. Maybe I didn't ruin his life the way he tried to ruin mine. But I told the truth. I watched him fall without running to catch him. And I didn't feel guilty. 3 weeks after the sentencing, I got a letter from prison. One last message. I didn't open it. I tore it in half, tossed it in the trash, and walked away. Because the story doesn't end with him anymore. It ends with me. And this time, I'm finally free.